Okay, so for our project, we decided to do a card game, and we chose Blackjack. So essentially with our game, you have basic functions such as hitting and standing, and you start off each round by placing a bet that you will either win or lose, depending on if the dealer beats you or not, or if you bust. So you start off the game by selecting player 1 and inputting any number 1,000 or less down here, because this is your pool that you can choose from on the bottom right. If that's your player score, that's basically how much money you have in like your wallet. And so you go ahead and put down your bet and do the same thing for player 2 since it's multiplayer. We'll also go ahead and put 100 as well. Now that you've done this, you have to select that you are ready to play the game. Once you do that, you're able to actually start the game by pressing New Game. And we're still under player 1. It is player 1's turn. Now we started off, as you can see on the right, with a jack and a queen, so our current hand is worth 20. In this case, I would choose to stand instead of hitting, so we don't bust. Now that player 1 played their turn, you go over to player 2, and they can make their own decision. In this case, I'll go ahead and hit. But that player 2 automatically lost that bet. It's in the bottom right. Standoff between the dealer and player 1. Player 2 is eliminated because they busted with 22. It subtracted 100 from their wallet. So now if we go back to player 1, we see they did not gain anything from their bet, but they didn't lose any either. So because of this, we can now start a new game. I didn't place a bet, and because of that, there's no way that you can win or lose money. But you can still do the exact same functionality. So in this case, for player 1, I'll stand. For player 2, I'll hit again. So player 1 has 17. The dealer ends up with 20, so they won. So essentially that's the entire functionality of the game. You have a hit function, you have a stand function, you have a wallet or a score that you can actually pull from so that you can make bets. If you make bets, you win that money back on top of your current score. If you lose, it subtracts from your current score. And it's essentially, there's multiplayer functionality by being able to play as a player 1 and a player 2 with their own unique hands and their own unique wallets that you can place bets with them uniquely. And you essentially play just like in Blackjack by fighting like against the dealer. And that is pretty much the entirety of our Blackjack game.
Hello, my name is Stephan. I worked on the graphics and sound for this project. Starting off with the graphics, we wanted it to display your starting hand when you first start the game. So when you start a new game, we'll show your hand. So this is a 12. So you have a 2 clubs and a jack of diamonds. And we want it to show many cards can make up 12. So for instance, this could be a 4 or a 10. Or that's 14, but it could be an 8 and a 4, or it could be a 2 and the diamonds and a jack of spades or something like that. So to implement that, we had it so when you start a new game, it calculates for player 1 the image for the card, and we put it in a value between 1 and 13. And the idea is that in the project file, it shows the card faces, and each are divided by suits, and in each suit they're all numbered 1 through 13, corresponding to the traditional value of the card. So it chooses an image value between 1 and 13, and then lists out the suits, and then chooses a random suit for a 1 card. So for player 1, card 1, it chooses the suit, and then for the card path, it says it's in card faces. It says it's in this suit, and then it says this number plus PNG, so it gives the name and the path of the file. So it reads the file and says that this is the card image, and if the image is messed up, it corrects it by converting to RGB, and then displays the image component in the app designer to the source of that image to that card. But in Blackjack, the values of the cards, jacks, queens, and kings, they're all worth 10. So in order to implement that, any card above 10 is equal to 10, and any card less than 10 is equal to whatever value it is, like 8. And we also do the same thing for the dealer card, which only gets one card in Blackjack. For sound, we did a similar implementation. So in the same file, there is sounds, and these are dot wave files. And whenever a player makes an action or the dealer makes an action, it plays a sound. And I think these are quite nice sounds. So when you win, it plays a win sound. When you bust, it plays a bust sound. And you can hear some of them by just trying out the program. So new game, it's a nice shuffling sound. When you hit, well, in that case, we won, so we got a winning sound. But for player 2, when they hit, it has a nice drawing sound, and when they stand, it has a nice meaty pause. And then, so the dealer won, so it gives it like a nice guttural slap in the face kind of sound. So yeah, that's how the sounds and graphics were implemented. So yeah.
Hello, my name is Gabriel Vargas. I'll be going over my part of the Blackjack project, specifically some of the functions that I worked on to make sure that our game flowed as smoothly as possible. Going through all the loops that it has to, because Blackjack is a game that you don't just kind of play once, you play a couple of times, you spend money, you get money back, and the whole point of this is just making sure that someone at the end walks away with more money than the other. And so some of the functions that I'll start to go over are just the new game button. This is the button that you would press if you wanted to. Where is it? There we go. New game button you want to press if you start the game. Very simple. It starts each player with 2 random cards and gets all of their numbers all set up beforehand. Gets the dealer one of their numbers so you can get a bit of an accurate read on what decisions you might want to make against the dealer and for yourself. Our first important button is the hit button. This is the button that you'd want to press if you wanted to add another card to your hand. So say you have like a 13, you think that's not good enough to go against the dealer, you would just hit, you would get another random card. And you would kind of make those decisions as you go based off how likely it is that you'd get a card that wouldn't bust your run and kind of ruin your day. So this goes very simply. There's only 2 real outcomes to this. You either bust or you hit a blackjack. Blackjack's just hitting 21, bust is going above 21. So this one gets decided pretty fast and has some of our subtractions from the wallet coming here or additions from the wallet coming here. As you can see, we have a flag value set for some of these. These are to determine which outcomes come from where and to help us decide what steps we need to make in the future. So for example, coming from the hit, a bust and a blackjack both have the flag value of 1. This is to determine that these values are coming from a hit run. A flag value with a 2 is if, let's say, the player ends up busting here and they end up losing their money. All of their money, they're given a flag of 2 to make sure that they can't play for the rest of the game until the other player finally loses all their money. And then we would just go over the scores. The stand button, this one had to get simplified a bit. In the button function, you'll see more as we go over into some of our other functions. But this just turns off our hit and stand button to ensure that players aren't cheating during it. This gets a flag value of 3. 3 goes with the stand route. And so you'll kind of see what I mean more as we go over that. But we have the dealer function here, which I'll just scroll up to some of our functions. It's a pretty long function. We have to fit a lot in here. To start, we have our flags. This just determines where our flag should go. So let's say we have two runs that end in both players going to hit, and they either bust or they blackjack regardless. This sets their flag values to 0 and starts the game immediately, because once both players hit, they don't need to go through the whole stand process. This one is one player maybe bust or blackjack, and one player just loses their money. That makes sure that that player stays unable to play. The other player can keep going until they eventually lose their money. And then this is just one scenario where like both players lose their money and game's over. And this goes to the loser app. Loser app defines who the loser is. This just gets rid of a couple of visibilities, and then depending on whose score is higher than the other, because remember, you want to. The goal of this game is to have had made as much money, I guess more money than another player. So it doesn't matter where your money is now; it's who got the biggest wallet at some time. And so that would just decide which player wins, which player loses, or maybe everybody loses and both players have the same wallet, which just didn't go up or down. And then finally we go to our stand function. It's a pretty lengthy function, but this just defines what we should do with our dealer. So let's say both players stand. Then this begins our dealer run. And the reason we did this is because we want to make sure that the dealer goes once all players have played and they've made their moves. It'd be a little unfair if one player decided to stand and it showed all of the dealer's goings, and then the other player decides, oh, I see that, and the dealer has a 21, so I think I'm just going to hit and try my luck. We want to make sure every player is seeing things at the same time. And so this just goes through the basic dealers. Dealer gets more than a 17, they're forced to stand, or a 17 or more, they're forced to stand. All the basics, defining whether a dealer wins, and the whole point of this is just to make sure that we can calculate the output of each player differently. So one player might have hit, like we see here, or might have lost all their money, and one player might have stood. That means that we only calculate the outcome for one player, since we can't calculate the outcome for the player who hits, since I would either give them extra money or steal more. So we keep going through this, and eventually it all leads into both players having their own money and having their own outcomes calculated for them. Everything goes back into the flag, and the flag will decide where the players go from there. So then it'll restart the game button. Each player can make their own bets, and the game keeps going from there until one player or both players lose all their money, and they calculate at the very end.